It's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. In our series around private equity, venture capital, mergers and acquisitions, we've been highlighting a variety of different women leaders who have come through what we'll just refer to as the M&A space, mergers and acquisition space, and doing amazing things with their career and their lives. Today, I am so fortunate to introduce you to Tracey Figurelli. Tracey is currently with Andre Partners, as well as has done an enormous amount of work on different boards and has built a major career navigating different decisions she's made. Another brilliant woman in the space. And I'm not going to sit here, Tracey, and talk about you when I could talk with you. So thanks for joining me here at Her Success Story.
Well, thanks so much, Ivy. Happy to be here.
So share a little bit of your background. I'm always curious, like what leads, different people down different journeys, and mergers and acquisition, whether you look at private equity, venture capital, whatever terms you want to use, it's not a very women popular space in the last 20 years. So what led you down this journey?
Well, I would say it's definitely not a straight line. I wasn't an Ivy League kid that knew I wanted to get into the space right after school. That was not my intention. I kind of meandered a bit. I would say a lot of my career has been falling into situations and figuring it out as I go. So if I started with So
you're human.
Yes. Yeah. Very human, and make a lot of mistakes. But going back to college, I wasn't even sure what my major would be. I struggled with that whole, what do I do? I was good at math, so kind of fell into business and said, okay, business sounds good. What is that? What does that even mean? What am I going to do in the business world? And, took my first job, and it was stable, it was secure, and got into that. I got my MBA in finance, knew I liked the finance world, but I also kept gravitating towards technology. I like technology. So it was a little bit of a explore things, try things out, see where there's a challenge, and ended up, the bulk of my career has been almost 20 years in global consulting. So I was really bridging a gap between finance, technology, helping clients. Loved that work. And at the tail end of that career, I started doing acquisitions. I was looking for digital transformation type services companies and loved that space. So just kind of started at the tail end.
And I was going to say, being in technology in the early days, was even more unusual on the female side.
Oh, for sure. Yes. I got used to being the only female in most of my roles. It was that I just got accustomed to that, and that's how it was. But back to the acquisition. So liked that acquisition. And then when I decided to leave that career, I've only been in the true PE M&A space for about 3 years. So started that right after the global consulting career. And I'm currently, my role in buy-side advising with middle market private equity. I work with private equity strategic clients on defining their investment thesis, their acquisition strategy, and then helping them align with target companies. So I'm kind of right in between both of them, and just enjoy it quite a bit.
In what are you seeing today in the various strategies behind buying companies, selling companies, and bringing them through this process?
I would say the market now, in the 3 years I've been here, it's changed so much, right? I started out, valuations were insane. Companies were selling and overvalued, and there was all kinds of fighting for opportunities amongst both VC and PE, but it definitely slowed down a bit in the past year. Valuations have stabilized quite a bit. I think founders are maybe holding a little bit longer. They're not selling as quickly as they were over the past few years. And what I find really intriguing about the private equity space is they're not all created equally. You really have to find the private equity firms that align with your beliefs and how you operate and how you work. And that would go for me working with them or a founder owner selling into them as well. I think that's what what really has come out in the past few years is just how they operate during tougher times is really telling.
And I think that's so true. When times are a little more challenging, you truly see, resilience is becoming a little overused, yet you really see leadership at its best.
Oh, for sure. I couldn't agree more. And yeah, that's no different whether you're in a consulting firm, private equity, M&A, wherever you are. I think that is an absolute statement.
So share a little bit, you've done this. I'm going to detour here a little bit, Tracey. You've done this as a working mom, raising a family, making different strategic decisions for yourself in your career. What have you learned about navigating all of that? Or all of this as we're all in this journey together?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Gosh, I go back to the days. So my kids are now 19 and 16. So if you go back to when they were little and I was working full time, I was not only working full time, I was traveling internationally full time with small children. And it was just an expectation. Back then it was definitely an expectation. You do it if you want to move forward and you get it done. And luckily had a great support system. My husband was fantastic and could help balance a bit of it. But it was difficult. I won't say it wasn't difficult. I think fast forward into now, I think there's so much more flexibility and understanding of parents in the workforce, men and women, and obligations to being home versus at work. But it was, it was tough in the early days. And what I really see is a change for women. I remember there were so few coveted spots for leaders as women, 19 years ago, 20 years ago, that there wasn't as much support. There was a little bit more competitiveness for the women to, I need to shine and get that one spot. And what I've been just thrilled to see over the years is that change into women supporting women a lot more than they were back then. And I'm a huge advocate for that. Any chance I can to mentor women, work with women. I do some angel investing on the side with technology firms, and I look for if I can find a strong women-led company, I absolutely love to support in any way I can. But it was for me personally, it was figuring out how to make it work and not worry about how everybody else does it. It was what worked for me, and making sure I was present when I was home and I was present when I was at work, and, being there truly for my kids as they were growing up. And it's interesting. I took a long time to make a decision to change that job that I was traveling constantly, but it was when my oldest was going into high school. And that word being present was hitting me really hard. I just felt like that was such a crucial time in his development. And as he was navigating choices in high school, I thought, I need to get off the road. And that was when I joined Andrew Partners, was 3 years ago, to actually be home a little bit more. That was a decision for me that I needed at the time.
Yeah, I happen to agree with your philosophy and your thinking. And it's not for me to agree or disagree. We're all different points of view. But I know as I've navigated my own careers and my children at different ages, I always felt high school was an enormous period of time that I wanted to be. And I like the word present. It also, you talk about mergers and acquisitions in any which way, and you look at risk and reward. And as we navigate our careers, we're always looking at risk and reward. We navigate parenthood and navigate guiding our children and helping them see risk and reward. So I think it's so prevalent in so many ways. When you're looking at companies that you're thinking of putting yourself behind or investing in or guiding, how do you look at risk and reward from your perspective?
So I'll shift from my kind of angel investing hat for a second with that, and also the board work. I do the same thing you're discussing when I consider a board seat is, risk and reward for all of this. I think that's a great way to evaluate lots of different opportunities. And for me, I look at first and foremost, the founder management team, and I really look at that as being a pivotal point of the discussion to even decide, am I evaluating risk and reward on, financials and the product development, all of that. First and foremost, the founder, the team, that is so important. And I believe many private equity look at that as well to see, if that's something they're investing in. What type of individual is it? What vision do they have? How do they work with others? How do they take constructive criticism? Like all those factors, I would say come into it quite a bit. And then how much of a risk is there to put behind that person? So if there's not much because you really believe in them, let's go to the next step. What's their product? What's their go-to-market? So you start going down the steps and criteria and looking at how big of a risk and what could I do to mitigate that risk to make sure they succeed? And then, you're weighing with the reward of what are you getting out of this? What are you helping them to do? And I think that for me personally, there's a reward. There's obviously a monetary reward, which is great, but there's a personal reward of actually helping those founder owners I believed in move their company to the next level or be able to do something they didn't realize they could do before. And that's a huge personal reward that I walk away. And I always evaluate, what am I getting out of this personally to make sure I invest my time, because I'm putting time into it, potentially money into it. So that's for me. And I know lots of people have their models and have strict guidelines on how to measure both of those. But for me, there's a little bit more of a gut that goes into it as well.
I agree. Gut instinct is important. Gut instinct is really important and sometimes underrated.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And it's funny. I'm going to sidebar for a second and talk a little bit about, you just reminded me of throughout my career and being a woman, a young woman in the business world, constantly underestimated in abilities. So when you just said underrated, it reminded me of that I felt like for a long time I had a chip on my shoulder because I was always underestimated, and it would piss me off. I would think, why don't you think I can take this on? Why can't I do this? But then eventually I started using it almost like a little mini superpower to be like, you know what? They don't realize what I'm going to be able to do. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do all this. And then I will be rewarded at the end when they realize, oh, I should have bet on you sooner. But it has been something that has always been throughout my career. I mentor women that deal with it in a bit too. And I say, use it to your advantage. Don't let it threaten you or bog you down. Don't get defeated by that and frustrated. Use it to your advantage and just plow through. You can do it. So if people underestimate you, they do, but don't let that hold you back.
Actually, I love that because I love taking the negative and flipping it to a positive on a regular basis. I firmly believe in showing up every day with a what can I do attitude. I talk about that all the time. Sorry, listeners, you heard it again. But I truly believe it's today might have started, what can I do? How can I show up? What can I do about this? And taking the negatives and finding the positive. And what you're describing, I know I started in a very male-dominated industry early in my career in the printing industry. For a long time, I had a lot of elbows and arms pushing me away. And I just kept I said, I'll just keep showing up. I'll just keep showing up, doing my thing. I'll just keep showing up and doing my thing. And it became like, oh, Ivy might know something. Ivy does know something. And you use it as almost that mind reversal strategic strategy. And I love acknowledging that.
Yeah. But you know exactly what I'm saying. You could have just sunken down and just been totally defeated and frustrated with that and not taken the positive approach. But the fact you did, I find that so empowering that you could take it and say, oh, I'm just going to keep doing what I need to do. And so I as many women as I can, encourage to not get too upset about that. It's a factor of life and what happens.
I have to ask, what has been the biggest surprise in this journey for you?
Surprise was actually me leaving that long 19-20 year career with the consulting firm that I didn't expect to leave, but it was another woman, someone very close to me, my sister, who is a first grade teacher, will self-admittedly say she knows nothing about what I do or the business world or anything about it. But what she heard listening to me was I needed a change and I wasn't happy and I wasn't fulfilled. And she picked up on those things that I remember at the time I was a little defensive, like, you don't know, like why are you thinking I'm not happy? I'm happy. And she kind of pushed that. And it was that conversation with her that got me to, and this is a scary step, to walk away from an executive level career and the stability and everything that you've known, to walk away into a completely new sector, knowing no one. I had no network in this M&A space. And I took the leap of faith. And it was a little bit her, my first grade teacher sister, giving me that little nudge, which I find fascinating. And I laugh about it. When we talk about it, I just laugh. She was the reason I changed careers.
It's so true. We never ever realize where the most impactful nudges come from. And they're often where we least expect it.
Yes, for sure.
My nudge one day came when I was doing lunges in a park. And somebody said, you ought to do this. I was like, what? And all of a sudden, within 90 days, I was shifting my career around. So I agree. A piece of something yourself that you would like to leave to other women leaders for them to embrace. What could that be?
Depending on where you're starting out in your career, some, know this new world and the business world we're in, and it's a little bit more accepting than it was in the past. And I would say embrace that and run and just enjoy it. Don't question it, just go with it. For the ones that have been around a little longer, I think it's probably my comment on the whole underestimation. You will be, it's going to happen. You will not have a perfectly paved way ahead of you, but it's looking for, like you said, the positives, looking for the areas you can control and what you can do and what excites you and makes you happy. Don't do things for too long that are in a space where you're just not happy and fulfilled. You really have the right to find a great space in the business. I mean, it could be anywhere in life, but in the business world, sometimes you do have to just navigate a little bit, and that linear path might not be the answer. It might be listen for those nudges, the people in the park, the sisters, like listen for those and do something with it. Don't let that just pass you by. I think that's been a big part of my career, is just keep your eyes and ears open and don't miss out on those opportunities that you can push yourself, and then bet on yourself.
And I truly believe in every challenge, there's an opportunity. And it's for us to have those eyes opened. And it's okay for people to underestimate us. Because then when we actually perform, and we all have the ability to perform in our greatness, we have the ability to shine and really make a difference.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Yeah. Tracey, thank you so much for joining me here today on Her Success Story. Listeners, I'll always say at this point, take a moment and write down your phone, a piece of paper, the show notes. What is your takeaway from today? What meant something to you about Tracey's and I's conversation? And then make a decision and create an action for yourself. What is one thing you can do about it that would be important to you? Tracey, how can our listeners learn more about you?
Well, LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn for sure. Andra Partners, www.andrapartners.com is the business that I work in currently. And thank you so much, Ivy. This was a lot of fun.
This was terrific. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this podcast series on women leaders in the mergers and acquisitions, M&A space, PE, private equity, VC, venture capital, please share it forward with your friends and colleagues. And thank you for joining us here today.